Well, it's really good to see you again, James, and I'm glad we've had a bit of a chance for a catch up. And today, this is now we get to the end of like the annual cycle, so it's an opportunity really to be able to talk about how you've got on this year, to think about what you've done well, what you found challenging, and then also to do a little bit of a review of the targets you wanted to work on for this year. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's great.
Fab,
Fantastic.
fab, fab. So why don't we start? Just if you take since the beginning of this whole cycle, since we had our first target setting conversation, and your year in the classroom and in the school, like what have you been happy with? What's gone well for you this year?
What's gone happy? So I feel that having spent more time on my coaching, that's actually got my teaching to be more effective. I'm less um task orientated and more relationship
Mm,
orientated. So I'm asking questions that allow the kids to explore more in terms of what they're doing in that moment, as opposed to me saying, as opposed to me having having keeping to the plan. You have to do this thing, then followed by this thing, followed by this thing. I may want to get to A to B, but the route to which I've taken is changed. It's more question based.
yes.
So that I've really enjoyed, and that actually came up as one of the things in my parents' evening this week, where some of the children, the parents had noticed their exploration of um, philosophy ideas.
Mm,
Uh, I mean, we're only talking about year five, but even
yeah.
in year five, understanding that idea of asking the question why and that depth of understanding and reasoning was starting to already to develop through some of the stuff that I'd introduced. So that was really good. That was kind of my that was a oh that's so it's starting to filter through
Yeah.
at home as well as at school.
Was that a plan? I mean, did you like before you learned to coach? Did you think coaching is going to influence your teaching style, or hadn't you thought about it?
I'd I hadn't thought about it in that way. I knew that I loved questions within my classroom teaching, even from teaching PE and games,
Mm,
um, and getting pupils to explore an activity, particularly in PE, where
mm,
you're teaching an activity and you're asking them, well, how could you improve beating somebody, or what would you do, and getting to explore that rather than me telling them to, you could do this by has always been something that I've loved.
yes.
But they're taking the coaching skills that they've increased my ability to listen more and more
Mm,
effectively, and also to ask one question rather than stacking all my questions, which
yeah.
I often do, or I can do, where you're asking five questions and then wonder why the pupil hasn't got the first question because you've
Yeah.
added top.
What do they call it? Five for the price of one, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Okay. So all right. So this is a big thing that has gone well for you. The introducing a more of a questioning, like philosophical type of style of teaching. And what else? What else have you been happy with, just generally about your year?
I've really enjoyed the camaraderie of the staff room. It's been really good. We've got a real sense of almost a sense of family within the school. I'm making some great friends who I'm starting to develop more in my relationship with them and spending time um, in the staff room, being actively choosing to go into the staff room at break, as opposed to sitting at my desk, which is in a room next to the staff room.
Yeah.
Um, and that's been really good to feel connected. And I've also coached now quite a few members of staff, which I've also loved, and it's great to see that impact, and that they talk about that impact coming back a couple of months later, saying, "Oh, that was really good," and I really appreciate that. And I'm thinking a different way as a result of what we did during that time.
That's always a joy to hear, isn't it? And have there been people who you've approached or who've heard that you've done your coaching and they've approached you, or is it a combination?
Both. I've had I've sent out an email to all staff, and then through the email that I've said what I do, then people will come to me and say, "Oh, actually, I'd quite like to do that."
Yeah.
I had one the other week where they had originally decided that they want to be coached, and then they'd decided that they did want to be coached, but they went and had a conversation with other people. So I backed off and said, "That's fine, no problems," because we want those who want to be coached. They want to be. I want them to want to be coached, not me
Yeah.
coach because I need it.
Yeah.
And then they came to me this week saying, actually, do you know what? As a result of reflecting on a few conversations, I really appreciate to be coached. So I've got somebody else I'm going to start coaching after half term.
Brilliant, brilliant. So you've got coaching, you've got connection with colleagues, and you've got a bit of a philosophical style to your teaching. Anything else in the classroom? Anything else in your teaching that is going well that you're happy with?
I think those are my main ones at the moment. I particularly enjoyed some conversations about Aston Villa doing well with some of my kids, so that's been that's been good. But apart from that, those are my main three.
I'll have to take your word for that. When you say Aston Villa, I think about Andy Gray, which is I'm probably out of date, aren't I?
Yeah,
About 40 years, I think.
yeah, yeah. Well at the moment it's Rashford, joining Aston Villa and seeing how that develops as a in the culture of the team,
Yes.
and hoping he succeeds really well there.
Goodness me. What a funny thing. What a funny thing. And what about if we were going to ask a bit of evidence based, like what objectively are people seeing and noticing about, let's say if we take that first one, the having a questioning approach for your student, you said the parents are noticing at staff parent meetings. What else? What else are people noticing about your changes?
So I guess it starts in the classroom. So when I'm asking the question, actually, you see I do a lot of group work.
Yeah.
So you see them actively understanding. Oh, okay, this is it's almost like a switch. Oh, this is where we need to explore. We need to ask some questions, and so they're becoming much more fluent in switching into that mode of needs to just try and discover what's going on here. What is it? For example, this term in my RS lessons, I've been using paintings.
Yeah.
So we've taken an 18th century painting to look at a parable, and then they've explored the painting. What can they see within the painting? So they've used questions within that to unpack what's going on,
Yeah.
and then looking at the text, and then coming from the text back to the painting to see what they've missed. So
Yes.
that whole idea of exploring what they see, and not only in the parable itself, but also as the artist. What is the artist seeing? So it, you're trying to it gets them to that whole sense of, oh, why am I seeing what I'm seeing? Why is that painter? Why is the artist painting it like that? Why
Yeah.
is that person in the center? Or why is there a dog wagging its tail in an 18th century painting of Jesus? It's like demonstrating, and for them to explore that themselves is great.
Yeah. Yes. Fab. All right. So that idea of you're observing that and you're seeing that, and colleagues, what are colleagues noticing from what you're
I
doing?
think I think there are times when I'm sitting in the staff room and people might come up to me and have a little conversation. I had somebody the other day telling that started as an interest in what I was doing and ended up in a conversation about how their wife was doing because their wife was struggling with something,
Yeah.
and they've been working through something. And it was nice to be, that's the point where you're fully engaged and then you're
Yeah.
listening. You're able to provide those questions that unpack what's going on, and that allows them to explore themselves actually what's going on for them,
Yes.
uh, and walk away possibly in a different frame of mind.
Yes. Okay. So you're talking, seeing all of these benefits for your colleagues. So there's loads there. Anything else? Anything else that you wanted to just put on the positive aspect of the year?
I guess not only have I been not only has this gained confidence in me, but um, it's also caused me to in my coaching. I've used a new tool called Five Voices, which talks about um, it's basically based on Myers-Briggs, but it's caused me to reflect on my own self, and therefore as I've reflected on me, one of the things that's come up is I'm a connector, somebody who likes to connect with the people around me.
Yeah.
And so that's been something that I've noticed about myself, which then has enabled me to be more aware as I've gone into school about how I make those connections.
Yes. Yes. Fab. Fab. Well, I mean, your passion for coaching runs through everything you do. Last question on the positive side, and then we'll look a little bit on the dark side. From the data perspective, like how is all of this work translating into anything that like a neutral third party or someone looking at children's performance or colleagues' performance, if they say, well, what's the evidence? What might you say?
So evidence in relation to coaching, I give a feedback. So I'm coaching three children at the moment for 20 minutes, and so I've coached, I think it's about six kids over the last year.
Mm.
and I will send them a feedback form, and all their feedback form has been really highly positive about the way that it's been coached and the way the children have um, progressed and gaining self-confidence,
Yes.
which has been fantastic to hear. And that's done by the parents and the kids. There's a section for both.
Yes.
So that's been
Yeah.
really good. In terms of staff, it's a bit difficult because it's more fluid.
Yes.
With the marking, I set up like a test every half during the half terms.
Mm.
There's a little question on that has a bit more explanation. It's more an understanding question.
Yeah.
And you can see how the marking has increased as a result of the work that we're doing in class.
Okay. So you are seeing, you're picking up, there's a direct correlation between the way they're working and the attainment they're managing to achieve.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. Fine. Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate, I'm pushing you to share lots and lots and lots of positives, but I think I hope you find it useful to get those out on the table. So thank you for that. You know what's coming now, don't you? Obviously. What about the other side? What about things that you think, I want to improve that, or that's still a work in progress, things that you found more challenging?
So the biggest, going back to this learning about myself, which is a realization of my is the fact that I blend a lot of my roles.
Mm.
So I blend my work role with my home life role, with my relaxing, chilled out role. And so actually I find myself not stopping.
Yeah.
And that's something that I need to work on. That's been really hard because I've started this new business as well. And actually what I'm finding myself doing is, as particularly in the last month where I've found myself doing stuff at break time.
Yeah.
I've had that space to look to I'll answer an email or do something that's important rather than being present in the staff room
Yeah.
and engage in the conversation. So that's something I've started to notice. In relation to my lessons, yes, all those things are going and the kids love it, but there's a tendency to therefore be comfortable
Mm.
with the way that it works and not actually take it to the next level in terms of, okay, so now they're how can I then move forward from the place that they're explaining and trying to explore stuff? What would be my next step? And I
Yes.
think it's the middle of the year. It's been a hard term in terms of fixtures and um, parents' evenings and bits and pieces, and so and starting my business. And so there's been an element where I'm kind of comfortable. So
Yeah.
that would be probably where I am at the moment.
So okay, and so these are challenges. Are they things that you've noticed, or that you thought about when you knew we were going to chat today, or
They're things that I've progressively noticed over the last couple of weeks. I'm quite reflective anyway, so
yeah,
I know when I'm suddenly like, oh yeah, I look back and go, that lesson didn't work so well.
mm,
And why didn't that lesson work so well? Well, because of X, Y, and Z. Because I wasn't prepared well because
mm,
I hadn't got myself ready at break time, or I was tired because I hadn't switched off at home and I was
yeah,
still working at home late, or all those different things that then knock on how I come to my lessons. So actually, if I was to take away a target from today already, it would be how am I preparing for my lesson?
mm,
Not necessarily in terms of content, but
yes.
in terms of mindset.
Okay. You just said if I were to take a target away from today, it sounds like you're just
It's because I have a choice of where to do it or not.
apparently. Okay. All right.
But I am writing it down.
Always a clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are some chunky things, aren't they? That feel like works in progress to do with both your teaching practice, your business, but also your attitude towards you in the role. Anything else? Anything else that's on the even better if list?
Um, Even better if it would be great like always with the coaching, I'd love to be coaching more members of staff.
Yeah.
I'm loving what I'm doing with the coaching. Um, there are times when it's quite interesting coaching the kids as opposed to the staff.
Yeah.
And it's a different type of coaching. There's probably more coaching stroke mentoring in terms
Yeah.
of the conversation. And because of the time that I have, I don't have that space to be able to sit down with other children
Yeah.
who would benefit from that coaching session.
Yes.
So that's not having the time to do more of that is
Yes.
probably the expression.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, and trying to do more of these things, in that limited time. That's always a challenge, isn't it? Fab. Okay. Well, thank you. I mean, I wanted just to. I know you touched on targets, but I wanted to have a really good opportunity for you to talk about what's going well and areas that you want to carry on working on. And I'm not in your school, so I'm what I know is what you tell me. But if I would be guessing, right, your line manager and your colleagues would be very, very appreciative of all that you're doing, all these things in the way. So I'm going to ask you, what positive affirmation are you getting? Like, does your line manager tell you that they're loving this coaching style, or that they wish you'd stop and just get back to your lesson plans?
No, I think I do get really good feedback. They're very appreciative of the coaching that I do. The coaching, particularly with the kids, has gone down amazingly, and the parents are really appreciating um, the coaching and the feedback. And with the coaching, because I tend to often send a script or like a summary of what we've talked about,
Yeah.
and particularly in that, it's been a case of where they have um, learnt. Sorry, I've just got my daughter. Can I just say something a minute? I'll be
Of course
back.
you can.
I've just got on a Zoom call back. Well done. See you later. Sorry, it's my daughter saying she got 10 out of 10 on her spelling, so that's always good. And
It's
much,
always good.
as much as we're in a recording, actually, it's important that family comes first. So
How nice. How nice. 10 out of 10. Last day half term. Happy days, right? Everyone's a winner. Well, that's good. That's good.
um, I'll follow that up later. And
Yeah.
so what was I saying? I was saying about so with the kids coaching, that's what I was talking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the feedback and what your colleagues are saying, your line manager.
yeah, so they're really that's having a great impact in terms of those particular kids and preparing them for what's coming, whether it's for those kids who have started the school and are not finding that confidence in making friendships, or whether it's preparing for exams or moving on to the next school, all those kind of things. The coaching has really helped that transition. And one of the things that was interesting that came up from one of the feedback forums was actually the parents saying it's really interesting. Some of the stuff that we think is important isn't important
Yeah.
for the kids, and some things that we haven't thought of are important are actually really important for our son. And so that's also been a really eye opener for in the way that that's come about. So that's been brilliant. And then in terms of the staff, that's been great too, because of course it provides that hour where they can sit down and go through what's going on for them, and that has a dramatic impact not only in terms of what they do in their school time and their work time, but also oftentimes at home too.
Yeah. Goodness me. Goodness. Well, it sounds like there's some lifelong lessons being learned all over the place here. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this. It's joyous hearing it, and I really appreciate it. Let's spend a bit of time talking about the targets specifically. And I really appreciate that everything you've said in this last 20 minutes does touch in one way or another um, onto those targets. But go back to the targets that you set yourself, those goals at the beginning of the year, and they were around the teaching style, around connecting with your colleagues in that way, and around the coaching. Like to what extent in the round do you feel like you've achieved these targets that you wanted to achieve?
I think that the coaching has been challenging because it's referral, it's word of mouth.
Yeah.
So there have been times when I've not been coaching any staff, and then there's other times where I've been coaching a few. And so that learning not to get emotional or whether or not it's I'm doing any or not.
Yeah.
Me not to feel a failure because I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
That's been quite a challenge and a learning process for me.
Mm.
The I remember starting at the beginning where I was saying about the marking was really a challenge for me, and I was struggling with the time needed to do that. And so I feel like I have been much more effective in planning out how I mark, um,
Yes.
when I mark. So having putting that plan in place so that actually I'm only marking a significant piece of work once a term that's geared to their progression. And then the other times, it's much more fluid. So I
Yeah.
know what's going on. I'm giving feedback I'm hearing feedback. So when I come to a parents' evening, I've got these half-term marks, as it were. But then there was also the one-to-one conversations in class and the group work and the reports that I've been writing. So that's been good. I'd say I am if it was out of 10, I'd still say with the marking, I'm probably only a 7 or 8. And so that's I would say that's still an area that I need to work on, and that requires time. And I would say my use of time, where I said at the beginning, I kind of float, everything
Yeah.
transitions within. I think I've got to be much more prescriptive of myself and go, right, I need to block out this time
Yeah.
to do this, do my marking on this particular class so that it gets done to the way that I want it to be done. And I'm not quite there yet.
Okay. And is that something that is a carry forward then, do you think, for next year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That comes back to that mindset of how I prepare myself for my lesson.
Yeah.
So actually going into my lesson and having marked my books means that I am prepared and in the right mindset to start. That's part of marking is part of that mindset. Um, but also my mindset and how I use my time, that would be another mindset I need to work through.
Yeah.
Because if I'm exhausted, then I'm not in the right place to teach. And life happens, yes, it does.
Yeah.
But there's also an element that I need to block out my time and be okay. I need to do this, and it's difficult for certain, for different personalities. Some personalities like I do that anyway. It's easy, like it comes naturally. Right? For me, blocking out time is harder. I find the systems, I like talking about systems and improving systems, but
Yes.
need to put systems in place. It requires a lot more effort to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can see that. Absolutely. So, all right. So you thought about marking, you thought about your own style and your own rhythm. You talked about earlier on, you talked about coaching students, coaching uh, colleagues, and you talked about getting into the staff room as well. In the round, if you take all of those targets in the round, how pleased are you with the progress you've made with this year's targets?
I think it's really helped me having the targets work towards. Um, I I feel that there is still works to be done on those targets, um, and but I am enjoying working to what using them as I'm enjoying working on them,
Yeah.
because actually they're not only are they targets to make my work life better at school,
Yeah.
make what I do, but actually they're causing the 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 fallout of that is that they're making me reflect on myself, and they're
Yes.
asking me the question, well, why is that taking place, or why isn't that taking place? And therefore I'm finding out more about myself in those moments, which is
Yes.
enable me to put things in place.
Yes. Okay. So this is providing learning for you as well as support for your colleagues. Okay. 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 So if we think about the end of the cycle here, you've achieved these targets, you've done as much as you were able to do. You've got a couple of things that you're bubbling away that you already know that are carrying forward for next year. Can I perhaps invite you to think about those a bit more? And not today, but think about, okay, what else do you want to do that will make your targets next year equally rich. So, and then we'll pick that up when we start the beginning of the year next year. So you've got an enhanced set of targets. If you've got an enhanced set of targets, things you're happy to work with, what do you think it would mean to you starting
Um,
next year?
I think having the targets set for next year would mean I'd already be starting in momentum, so I'd already be knowing where I wanted to go to.
Yeah.
So, for example, looking in terms of the marking and the teaching, one of the things would be really good to do is see if there's any training that I could look at or any courses I could go on that would help me
Mm.
solidify and improve my time management and my marking ability and my um, use of resources within the class. And that would be something that would really help me in that area of my teaching. Um, and then in terms of coaching, it could be just to have a set number of staff or a set number of kids over the year,
Yeah.
and that gives me something to work towards. Yeah.
So you've just set next year's targets, right? And so you're about half a cycle ahead. Okay. Um, So well, then that's really worth thinking about, isn't it? It's worth thinking about when the cycle starts, rather than actually maybe seeing this as this year ends, next year starts. See it a bit more fluid as like, okay, these are now ongoing targets. You can start doing that, can't you? You can start looking for courses. You can start thinking about how to have your regular coaching clients. Is that okay? Is it all right to sort of
Yeah, yeah,
um,
I think that's really good. I think the danger is I think the danger is if you start again in September, then you lose the momentum that you created from the first. So that continual cycle, and it may change. Like the whole point of doing one in September is the fact that
yeah,
over the summer it may have changed and something actually crucial might come up that needs to be looked at first,
yes, yes,
which is fine. But actually having the momentum now to go, actually, this is where I'm firing my arrow, as it were, and it's got my piece of string on it, and it's fired to that shit. And I'm going to work my way towards where I fired it. It gives me a sense of direction, so that when I start in September, it's like, right, I know exactly where the direction I am heading. Should it change between now and 2026? That's fine, but I'm starting moving as opposed to stationary.
yeah.
I think we benefit.
Do you know, when you say that, it's really interesting that so one school that I'm working with, this is going to be the system that they're going to have. They're not going to have a cycle ends and then a new one begins after a summer holiday. They're going to have the idea of like ongoing CPD, that your reviewer is not really your reviewer, they're more like your coach mentor supporting you. And it sounds like you were in that rhythm. You were in that rhythm of ongoing targets. Yes, maybe something new turns up that you need to incorporate, but actually that rhythm suits you quite well. I mean, is that, I'm putting words in your mouth, but is that
No,
fair?
no, I think it's my. I think it's. What do I think? I was going to say I think it's healthier because there's no sense of failure
Yeah.
at the end of it. It's like I've got to the end. Oh no, I failed. Start
Yes.
again. Whereas this one, it's a case of okay, well, I might have, something might have come up. I might have had somebody ill in my family, in which case, I that's part of the reflection of what's going on in my coaching in my reflection of the year. It may be that halfway through the year I broke my leg, which means I couldn't have done X, Y, Z, which
Yeah.
then again, and so it's I guess it's more like it. Is it a circle or is it like a continual? I don't know. I'm trying to think of an analogy and I can't get there. But you know me. And but I think that's much better because actually I feel like I can aim for the next one and then get to there and go, oh, actually this is what's gone on. This hasn't worked so well, but that's okay. I don't feel under guilt. I don't feel under shame because I haven't achieved it because I've managed to chat it through. So, and then I come out with another set of targets which I try and aim up for the next one, and then so as I'm doing that, it cannot not cause me to reflect on myself as to where I am as a teacher, and then that's got to be a good thing for my pupils and the school.
Thank you. And I can hear your passion for this and actually being in this learning cycle. I think, it's a style that suits you really well, everything I know about you. Well, thank you so much. Well, this now brings the whole idea of having an annual cycle to an end, although you've opened the door to the next year, which is fab. So, two questions to finish off. I'll try not to stack them the way that you because that would be not good. But the first question is like, what has all of this work has been going through a whole review cycle in this way? Like what have you enjoyed about it, or what has it meant to you? There, I just did stack it. What's it meant to
It's been what's it meant to be? It's been really good. It's been great to have camaraderie in the conversation. I've loved the fact it's not been judgmental, and the fact that actually I can bring what's been going on for me, um, and feel like it's okay to say, actually, this hasn't gone very well.
you?
And then to be able to go, but even though that's the case, here's my targets moving forward. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me is the lack of judgment and the sense of positive momentum forward.
Okay, and thank you, and I really appreciate you saying that. And I think that anyone who's going to watch this video, although we know each other well, I'm not in your school, so I don't see you doing these things. I assume and hear, and I'm sort of feeding off all of your energy and your enthusiasm, and I think that's really important. And taking this approach in the whole cycle, like what's been the learning about yourself from doing this?
I've learned that um, I've learned that external situations outside of school affect my job, and therefore I need to learn to be kinder to myself.
Mm.
I think I can have high expectations of myself, and um, when things aren't going so well outside of school, uh, whether it's family, whether it's business, or whatever it is that's going on situation, actually there's a tendency to come in and as teachers we all want to do our best at school,
Yeah.
and sometimes we can hide, because it's like something's going on, and actually I can't face connecting in the staff room today, or I can't face having that conversation with a member of staff, and actually for me that's not connecting is an unhealthy thing for me, because it means that's where I get my energy from. Connecting with other people is where I get my energy from. So I that's what I learned about myself.
Okay, so you need to have that. My daughter got 10 out of 10 on her spellings on the last day of term energy when the other energy pops in and gets in the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, fab, fab. Well, listen, thank you so much, James, and thank you for doing this and doing them on a recorded basis, because it means that then that it's going to help loads of people, not just you and your students. And actually, there's a lot of people already, isn't it? Your students, the people you're coaching, their parents. We've already got a long list, haven't we? And your efforts and your enthusiasm for both your teaching work and your coaching work, they shine through, and it's been an absolute delight. So thank you, and enjoy carrying on working them. I hope they really go really well.
Thank you very
Thanks so
much.
much.
Much appreciated.
It's a real
See
pleasure.
ya.
Cheers.